Hello and welcome. You are listening to the Gay with God podcast, a safe place for us to share our stories and support one another. How long did we know? What challenges did we face? Did we lose our faith? When did we find our way back home? Or are we still searching? The stories you hear on this podcast will melt your heart and strengthen your belief that in God, all things are possible, and you can be authentically gay with the God of your understanding. I am your host, Midge Noble, and I am very honored that you are here. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gay with God podcast. This is your host, Midge Noble, and I am excited that you're listening. Wherever you're tuning in from, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I appreciate all that you do for this podcast, whether you share, whether you listen, whether you subscribe, whatever you're doing to help us stay current and on the air. I appreciate that so very, very much. So today I want to talk to you about higher calling. So what is a higher calling? If you're gay with God, what is your higher calling? Do you have to go to seminary? Do you have to get a Master of Divinity? Do you have to become a priest? Do you have to be a missionary? You know, back in the day when I was growing up, I really believed that in order to have favor with God, that you really did have to be some kind of a super Christian. You had to be something in the church. You had to do something. And I always felt called to do something. And I knew it was going to have something to do with church. Part of that, as I've said so many times, was out of my fear that if I didn't do something for God, I wouldn't go to heaven. I never thought about all the other people who did, other jobs that had nothing to do with church or their religion or their faith, and they did whatever they did. And I never even thought about them not having favor with God. It was always, my insecurities and my inability to find love for myself and belief in myself that I thought I needed to have some higher calling in order to have favor with God. And now I understand, of course, that it doesn't matter what job I do. It doesn't matter what my calling is. Whatever profession that you make money at might be your calling, or it may just be what you love to do and you're making money at it. Because ultimately, God is only calling us to love one another. So it has nothing to do really with your maybe spiritual calling from God to do something specific in the church, or it may be that you are called to take in your neighbor's trash can when they're having back trouble, or you're called to donate money to a worthy cause, or you're called to go visit someone in the hospital that needs a loving, tender presence because maybe they don't have family that does that. So it's just about showing compassion and love. I also believe that there are times that we get a higher calling, whether we are expecting it or not. And I believe that higher calling, if it is something that rises above what we are normally expected to do, it is usually, I think, a spirit-led calling. And it could be then that higher calling might be to go into the priesthood or to do something specific, sort of like the apostles were called for something specific. That was a higher calling than being a follower of Christ. They were also called to spread the gospel of Christ, the good news. And so that specific little twist is something that I think is real. And I do know that people say, as I have said, I felt the nudge. I felt the desire. I felt the calling to do this specific thing. So in that higher calling, when you're in the middle of it, how do you know that it's from God? And how do you know it's just not your own ego? So what I'm about to talk to you about is really just my own meandering, Midge's mumblings kind of thoughts. It may not apply to you whatsoever, and you may have a very clear understanding of what your higher calling might be and how you got it and how you know for sure. And please, if you do, email me at empoweredmidge@gmail.com. I would love to know more about that from you, and you may even be the next guest on this show. For me, I have never, absolutely never known for sure what nudges, what pull that I may feel is actually a higher calling from God or a nudging from the Holy Spirit. Over time, I've been able to trust that if I feel this, I know I need to go do it. And it never, ever, I can tell you, it never, ever, ever turns out exactly the way I thought it would. Because when I get that nudge and I start to go into that call, so to speak, I have only thoughts of how great it's going to turn out instead of what the struggle is going through it and maybe the absolute complete different outcome than I expected, because we all want to be loved and we all want to have great success, and we want to maybe, put our name out there with our business and have lots of clients or have lots of, likes and shares and all of that. That's the ego part. And I'm very clear about that I can slide into ego instead of just stay in the moment and do what I'm called to do or what I feel the nudge to do. And that nudge can be as simple as ring someone up on the phone and check on them. That nudge might be sending a card out to somebody who's in a nursing home and I know they don't get very many visitors, or going and actually visiting someone. So that practical application of a nudge to do something that actually impacts another person, I think, is one of those little God wink moments where you get the nudge and you go do it, and it benefits probably both of you, but your intention was never to get anything out of it for yourself. It was only to be for that other person. And you realize that this boomerang effect happens when you're clearly in a moment of compassion. You also get some sort of a uplift and blessing from trying to be there for another person. I think it's important to tease out for ourselves if we're going into something just on an ego basis, because we are probably going to be disappointed. So if you go to do something only to make the money out of it, or to get a lot of prestige, or to get a lot of likes and favors for it, that may turn out for you great. It may not turn out for you. I think it's important that if we're looking at doing something that we feel called to do, it is always going to be about service. It's always going to be about putting the other people first. And it's not usually self-gratifying. Sometimes it's really yucky and it doesn't feel good while you're doing it, and it's exhausting. And you also feel that you're right where you're supposed to be. It doesn't mean that you won't love it. For example, I love being a lector at church. I love serving as a Eucharistic minister. I love lay preaching. And it doesn't mean, though, that I'm not scared. It doesn't mean that I don't get nervous. It doesn't mean that I sometimes wonder, why did I get myself into this? But it is something where I receive something back even without expecting to. And it is also something that I always feel that I'm in the right place at the right time, even if it doesn't always feel good. So here's the little twist for today. A higher calling can also be as mundane as being there for your spouse or partner, however you define your relationship, being there for them when it's not going to be comfortable, it's not going to be satisfying, and it's not going to be easy. As I always do on this show, I'm pretty raw and I tell you kind of what's going on and what's happening. And this only happens when I don't have a guest, by the way. So if you want a different way of this show going, then we need to have more guests on this show. That's my plug. Let's come on, guys, get back on the schedule and bring me a guest to interview, and I would be super, super happy. For today's discussion, though, I'm going to be raw and I'm going to be authentic. A higher calling is in my life right now, and my higher calling at this point is to be compassionate and loving and present to help my wife get through a very difficult surgery that is coming up soon. Now, I am many things. I am compassionate. I am aware of people's suffering. I am kind. I will do things for people if they need me to do them. If I'm at all able to do it, I will help in any way possible. And I have always been extremely clear that I am not a nurse. I don't like body fluids. I don't like hospitals. I don't like trying to help someone without really knowing what I'm doing. It scares me to be around someone who's really super vulnerably physically, and I don't know what to do exactly or how to help, and they may not be able to give me clear directions as to what they need. Now, I think this really stems back to the time when my sister actually had some very long-term surgeries. I mean, she was needing some orthopedic surgeries when she was quite young. I mean, she was probably like 11 or 12, something in that area. And she went away to a actual hospital where you leave your child there and they go through all these massive surgeries to help them orthopedically. And then you go visit them, but you don't get to bring them home all the time. We did get to have weekend visits some as she was recovering, but I mean, it was like I had a sister one day, and then all of a sudden she's in this place, and we leave her behind, and then I'm in a room by myself for the first time in my whole entire life. And I don't have my sister, who is 13 months older than me, and so we were like twins. And all of a sudden, she's gone, and it just rocked my world, literally. And when she came back, I so wanted her to be back to who she was, but she was still in cast. She was in a wheelchair. She was fragile. And I always kept messing up by knocking into her wheelchair or not realizing how unstable she was and doing something funny and she almost fell over. And I was always getting into trouble for being insensitive and not thinking about what she needed and how I needed to take care of her. Was a child and I didn't know, but it really started messing with me about whether or not I was capable of being around sick people or people who were challenged. And the other thing was that there was a time where she was supposed to be doing physical therapy on her legs and making sure that she continued to massage her legs and get them to come straight because she had been in a cast that bent her knee and she needed to work that out and get that straightened out. And one day I was trying to help her with that and I went too fast and her leg pushed down quicker than it should have. And she was in excruciating pain. And of course, I got in really serious trouble for that, even though my intention was to be helpful and I just screwed it up. So, the internal fear that I have when I'm around very vulnerable people who are sick or injured and they need assistance, I am literally scared to assist them. I'm scared to take care of them. I'm scared to be on the front lines. However, I feel this higher calling coming that is unavoidable, really, because I am her spouse. I am the person at home. I am going to be the one on the front lines to help her. And I'm going to tell you guys, I'm terrified of this higher calling. I would really, really, if I had the money, I would hire a person to come and live with us to do all the caretaking. I'll cook, I'll clean, I'll do whatever else I can do. I don't want to be the hands-on person. And yet I will. I promise I will. And it will be terrifying for me. And it's going to be a dance between my feelings of inadequacy and my deep love for her to want to be the person to be there for her. And I just also don't know how well I will be able to do everything for as long as it's going to take for her to recover, because she's going to be absolutely unable to do anything with the dogs, with the house, with the yards, nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing for I'm not sure how long. We have not yet to had some sort of a really clear idea of how this is all going to play out time-wise. But we know it's going to be probably at least a month, if not 2 months of recovery, maybe more. So it's just one of those things that when you think about a higher calling, it doesn't always come with a title. It doesn't always come with something that you are being called to do for God. Although when you go back to the original message from God is to love your neighbors, love yourself, be compassionate, serve others, basically. So I am in the middle of the most high calling that we all get. Every single one of us has this higher calling to love one another. And we never figured out that sometimes loving one another is to get into the muck and really have to do the work that's dirty and uncomfortable and fearful. That's the higher calling, when it isn't easy. And it is something that we're challenged to step up and do that is not in our wheelhouse. It's not in our ability to do it from where we've been trained or how we've even imagined ourselves. It is always a surprise when we are called to do something that will completely turn everything upside down, and yet there's always a nugget on the other side. And I am praying so very hard that I will be able to see the nugget and not lose sight of what might be on the other side of all of this. Because I promise you, I'm sitting in a place of inadequacy. I'm sitting in a place of fear. And the only thing I know to do is focus on the love I have for her and my trust in God that I will be given what I need to face this higher calling when it's time. And it's not exactly time yet. So I don't have what I need. And that's where this higher calling is also part of what the faith that we have in following the nudge, standing in the unknowing, and being given what we need only when it's time. And that's how we build faith. We build it by going in to the darkness and knowing that the light will turn on when we need it to turn on. When you feel the nudge, answer the call and trust that you will be given everything you need to be given when it's time. Thank you, everybody, for subscribing, sharing, and being present with me today. If you want to learn more about me, go to the show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com. And if you would like to have a private session with me, I offer complimentary sessions at no cost. And you can find that link on the show page at empoweredmidge.podbean.com. You can also find a link where you can purchase my memoir, Gay with God, Reclaiming My Faith, Honoring My Story. And you can also find that link to be a guest on the Gay with God podcast. And I hope that those of you out there listening that have a story to tell about your coming out faith journey story, and maybe plugging something that you would like people to know about on the show. Consider joining our Facebook group, Gay with God. We do a monthly group on Zoom entitled My Faith Journey. It's a great time to hang out with other people and just talk about life and talk about your journey and get support. And it's a wonderful, wonderful time of connection. That's Gay with God on Facebook. Answer all the questions so that I can invite you inside. If you are listening to this podcast and are questioning whether you can be gay and be in a relationship with the God of your understanding, If you identify as LGBTQIA+, or not even sure if you're gay, God has always been within you. Even when you didn't know it, you have always been gay with God. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned to see how you can join the Gay with God community. And as always, you are loved. I want to invite you to become a part of the Gay with God community. How can you do that? Stay connected by messaging me your thoughts and comments in the comment section under the downloads of the show on the Gay with God show page. Subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen and share so we can increase our community outreach and be a light to those who are struggling to claim their faith. Consider being a sponsor so I can highlight your service in our community. We are all worthy of respect and a relationship with the God of our understanding. I want to thank you in advance for supporting this podcast. Together, we as a community will keep this show visible and our community stronger. Deep gratitude to my friend Tim McClendon of Tim McClendon Music for allowing me to use an excerpt from Interlude 4, a song found on his CD entitled Sundance.